So maybe I'll just give a quick, brief introduction of all the panelists today. So Sasha co-founded Puzzle. It's a startup focused on accounting software, very native to Stripe and Ramp. Sasha has 20 years, very successful years in fintech, including founding LendUp and Mission Lane, and also serve on Revolut's board. He also had experience from Citigroup to World Bank. Colin currently serves as the Chief Business Officer at Ramp, and he has 15 years track record on both fintech startups and Fortune 100 companies. Before Ramp, he was at Stripe too. So he oversaw global partnerships and also the innovative financial products like Stripe Treasury. Before he joined Ramp and Stripe, he led digital bank businesses at Marcus by Goldman Sachs. I was a customer, and I'm still a customer, but one of the very early ones. He achieved remarkable growth, over 1 million users during his time there. Last but not least, Robert Clarkson is the CRO Americas at Stripe. Before joining Stripe, he led pivotal positions as a Chief Revenue Officer at Pioneer. He actually led 3 companies public, including PayPal, Northern Life Lock, and Pioneer. So we're going to hear a lot from all 3 panelists today from their go-to-market journeys and also their leadership roles in, deciding how the company is setting their go-to-market strategies. So with that, I would love to start a question from just a brief background of yourself on navigating very fast-moving and also dynamic go-to-market journey in your past roles to your current leadership positions. And maybe with Sasha, given Puzzle is in the early stage of figuring out go-to-market journey, maybe you can tell us a little story on your journey there.
So I've spent most of my 25 years doing consumer. And so the go-to-market is like market and put your marketing dollars to work and try and hit it on social. And so now transitioning to accounting software, which clearly has so many hooks to make it go viral on social every day because it's just so exciting. We think about the mental model of accounting today as founders as something we have to hire somebody else to do for some future state compliance. And it's not really helpful for helping us build our business today. So if we were to build a solution to keep people compliant that could instantly generate your financial statements and metrics and help you build your business, you wouldn't believe it. Because if that existed, if it was possible, then it would exist. And we're challenging against really deep incumbents, like QuickBooks, who's been around for 30 years, NetSuite, who's been around for 25 years. So as we transition and think about go-to-market for something that people don't think about as valuable, and we're against a set of incumbents that think about this as a future compliance, we thought about 2 important ways in which we could distribute this. One is it's completely free for all newly incorporated startups, like companies that just completed Stripe Atlas Incorporated and are just beginning their journey. And that's because it's important for everybody to be able to get started, and thousands of founders can do it in 2.5 minutes. But then as we move up market to more and more complicated software where like efficiency and accuracy actually matter, we're adopting a reverse trial method, which is everybody gets it for free for 30 days because you don't believe it's true, and then you see it, and you're like, oh, well, some expletive, but like this actually works, and it's amazing. And so that's how we thought about the starting stages of our go-to-market for the past year.
Very cool. I'm learning something new about reverse trial today. Colin, want to go next?
Thanks for having us, Jennifer. Really appreciate it. So I'd say a couple things. I think for Ramp, the focus on go-to-market really from the beginning was to optimize, similar to Stripe, for user value. So our focus from the beginning was really to figure out what do users most care about, what's missing in the marketplace, and how can we fill that gap. I think maybe a similar problem or a similar situation what Sasha mentioned, where if you do that really well, if you take the pain out of expense management, if you make financial life easier for CFOs and for employees, people initially don't believe it, because when you tell them you can do it in a few moments, in a few minutes, you can be up and running, they're going to contrast that with a large ERP implementation, or they may contrast it with other software they've purchased. So we started with a free model, which we still offer. The intent is really 2 models for 2 different types of companies. So a free model, extensive benefits, very much consumption-based, so our incentive is to help you save time and money versus having you try to spend more. That's kind of the antithesis of what happens in a lot of other places in the marketplace. And then secondly, we've kind of found over time that there are sets of features that are really valuable, both for smaller companies and for larger companies. So we tend to index less on what is the size of the company and more so how do they want to use the product. And if there are particular sets of features that they want to use, we do have another paid version, very simple SaaS per user model that users can opt for. But really at the core, all of it for us keeps going back to what are we hearing from customers, what do we need to add to our roadmap based on what we're hearing, and kind of taking this dual approach of continuing to offer a free model as well as one that's more SaaS and revenue-based.
So I've been in the go-to-market business for a long time. I joke with folks at Stripe that when I started in payments, it was really goats and shiny shells, and now we've gone way past that. My philosophy has never changed over all my years in the payment space and actually helping to bring 3 companies public. And it really revolves around, I see my mission as making other people successful. And so I join customers and I join the customer journey and I join companies that have that same vision. At the end of the day, it's my ability to make other people successful that makes me important to them. And in Stripe's case, in many instances, it's about enabling the companies that we do business with to be successful with the customers that they're serving. So whether it's a direct-to-consumer business, or it's a platform business, or it's a software business, the ultimate barometer of success will be how well do their customers engage with them as a result of the products, the tools, or the philosophies that we've instilled. So for me, across my entire career, which has basically been almost all in the payment space, it's about taking payments as a facilitator of other people's success as opposed to a product itself, and that's kind of the philosophy that Stripe has, and that's why I'm here today.
Amazing. I have many questions very specific to your each and your own experience, but I want to ask a general question, given where I have seen a lot of founders in the last few years are very interested in is this product-led go-to-market motion as the main go-to-market motion for many areas, not just consumer products, prosumer products, but even for infrastructure, dev tools, and financial services. So I'm very curious, in your point of view, how do you define product-led growth or product-led motion, and do you consider your company and the business you're running today still a PLG company? Maybe I'll start from Sasha.
I actually, as we were preparing for this, I was trying to Google, was there a unified view of what product-led growth meant? And the answer was no. Or there was a lot of answers maybe, but no sort of unified view. So I think if we think about what are the problems that you're trying to solve and how do you get customers to see the value as quickly as possible, remove as much friction. There are some types of products that are very complicated, and if you mess it up, it's very expensive for you, and it's very expensive for the company. So I think a primary example of that is payroll. I think it would be very hard to set up benefits, and you mess that up, or you mess up your payroll for a company, for your employees, it's painful. And so you see a more traditional sort of sales-led approach, because setting up benefits the wrong way can be problematic. But for companies where you have the ability to create time to value really quickly, why create additional friction if you don't need to? And so for something like QuickBooks, which really views their main customer as the outsourced bookkeeper who bills by the hour and likes to have additional hours to bill you, and we sort of view our primary customer as you guys, as the startups, as my company, we use it. And we can actually use software and AI to generate instant value in a couple of minutes. And so we think that at least at this stage, working with early stage companies, that just letting them get up and run and self-select is something that is so profound at getting to time to value in a set of minutes that we want to enable that to exist. Now, as companies get bigger and more complicated, you're a global multinational with a set of existing accruals, I imagine that we will start layering in a sales motion at that time, because again, at that point, setting up and getting somebody set up the wrong way for mistakes for something as important as your tax compliance or shareholder reporting is too big of a price for both sides along the way. But that's the long answer to yes, I think we're product-led growth now.
Great point.
So I think for simplicity, we would define product-led as can you purchase, interact with the product significantly without having to interact with a person in some form. I think the question is, how do you do that? And there's probably no real magic formula to it. We find it to be much more about execution. Are you obsessing over what users want, over what they're telling you they want, over what you see they want? And are you just obsessing about the design of the product? I'd say for me, I would not want to, at this point, join a company unless it were truly product-led. And in industries like some of us are in, at least in the case of Ramp, where a company is entrusting their entire financial operations or a significant portion of their financial operations to us, we do find sometimes they want to talk to people. So we will come in and function as consultants in the process. And it really goes across the spectrum. We've had some of our largest customers come in just inbound, start online, and some of our smallest have come in, or initially smallest, interacting through our consultants. And so we will continue probably to take both those approaches, but with the real important premium being on how can we, for that user who wants to come in and, quote, only use the product, make sure that she or he just has an unbelievable experience.
And so when I think of product-led, I think about the use case. And I was actually thinking about this on the flight here. A lot of times companies are problem-led. In other words, they're solving a specific problem, and a product is born out of that particular need. Now, there are instances of that not being the case, like iTunes or something that people didn't know they had, and now they can't live without it. But I do think that for the most part, there are a few industries, payments being one, healthcare being one, elevators and airplanes, where perfect execution is the expectation. And so you have to look at instances where your products, and in Stripe's case, products are critical to either the infrastructure or the success or failure of a particular customer engagement. And so when I think about product-led, and I've a boss a long time ago, she told me that nothing happens until something gets sold. But a lot of things happen until that time, and building a terrific product, solving a particular problem is critical to that. But at the end of the day, it's the go-to-market strategy and telling that story that actually makes the company grow. So you can be product-led, but that doesn't necessarily you're going to be successful until you can actually tell the story on how that product actually solves a problem or makes somebody's life better.
Yeah, those are all really great points. I'm actually curious, given I always see Stripe as one of the canonical examples of product-led company, developer-led. Ramp also built amazing product as a free tier. As the company grew and scaled to billions and trillions in payment being processed, like how does that free tier or this bottom-up motion still contribute to, especially your role running the sales organization?
Yeah, it's I love trying to grow a $1.1 trillion by 30% every year. That's a little wake up call every January 1st. But I think there's a couple things that happen. One, there's a gravitational pull with success. So as your company is more successful, more customers want to join in and see what's going on. More employees want to join and see what's going on. They want to have that success. You also see it in reverse when a company starts to slip or they start to lose their edge. That it's very difficult for them to keep customers. It's very difficult for them to maintain that gravity. So one of the things that actually is an advantage of size, even though you have to now I have to grow the business at literally $300 billion in PIV or payment volume next year to meet goals. So, think about that number for a few minutes. I do all the time. But it's one of those instances where we have an expression in Stripe. So you have pipeline, you have deals signed, you have deals launched and ramped, and then you have what we call NDR, or net dollar retention. And that net dollar retention at Stripe is more than 100%. So customers that do a certain amount this year, with growth in their business and with growth in cross-sell, upsell, and other things that we can do with them and their success, that NDR, that net dollar retention, is at 110, 115, 116, 118%, which is part of the reason we can grow it at 30% year over year, because our existing customers actually contribute to that growth. So that's to me, that's one of the big elements of growth, is having kind of multiple opportunities to grow the business. It's not just new customers, it's not just new geographies, but it's actually making sure that your existing customers are more successful next year than they were this year, and it helps your cause.
Cool, cool. And Colin, I'm actually curious, since we chatted a little bit right before the panel, Ramp started from the credit card business, now moving into selling software and SaaS of, the seat-based pricing. How has that transition been in the last year, and what's some of the interesting learnings from that?
Yeah, I think it was a real positive surprise for us, and I'll tie it back to what Rob was describing, and that is if you have a base of customers that you're continuing to deliver value to, who are continuing to use the product more and more every year, you're just earning more credibility, more respect in the marketplace. I think it would be anybody in fintech will have immense respect for what Stripe has done. And when you think about the brand, when you think about how much value has been delivered, it kind of naturally leads to continued growth from the base. So for us, I will not pretend we knew exactly what was going to happen when we launched the SaaS-based offering. And we're pleasantly surprised, I think, for two reasons. One, the existing base really has embraced it. And then two, if we were really doing what we said we were doing, that is creating a product with a lot of value, being able to articulate that value, really understanding problems, then the quotes transition to SaaS for customers who wanted that would go well. And it really overall has gone incredibly well. I think some of the surprises have been around which types of customers, which segments embrace it the most. We're still learning a lot, of course, but overall it's been a great transition.
Amazing. That's one of the transitions I've seen, a few companies pulled off. Another transition I've seen company actually struggled, especially, I have been on the side of seeing some of my portfolio companies, especially when they start with product-led and now they have to think about scaling with sales and bringing in sales leaders, building sales organizations. There are always a couple bumps along the way of, turning the culture over and also figuring out the customer journey, when is the right time to introduce that, element.
We had no bumps. It was totally smooth.
So I'm curious, actually, maybe starting from Sasha, now you're doing, I guess, founder-led sales. How has that transition been from product building to having a sales motion? And I would love to hear from the other two leaders as well.
Yeah, we think about sort of somewhat sales today a little bit more as business development because a founder can get on board and get up and running pretty quickly. And so when I'm not doing too much traditional face-to-face sales because we have accountants who are much better at this than me. So we think about a little bit of sales as sort of indirect sales with types of partnerships. And so we can sort of speak to one that we were working on for a long time is with Stripe Atlas. And I know we have quite a few Stripe Atlas customers here. And they hold a very high bar because it's Stripe, and they should. And that means you can't just go sign up. The market has to validate, and the product has to truly be best in class. And we worked with the team for years and years and years to be able to have that type of partnership, and now it pays off. And it's so fun to get to meet founders today who found us through Stripe Atlas, and that is really great. Then another type of sort of indirect sales, actually, with Ramp, where we have a very shared vision of saving companies like yours and mine time and money. And there's the direct cost of money, and then there's this really expensive indirect cost, which is accounting. And that has a lot of implications, especially as companies get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so getting to work with their team to create an API that allows for the most accurate and the most automated accounting behind the scenes of all of your spend enables Ramp customers to save more and more time and money, and then also gives us a value prop, which we can then help market about why Puzzle is better and different in market, and why as your companies continue to grow and grow, we save you more and more time and effort on something like that. So that's currently how I think about sales along the way. And then as we get a little bit later stage and we can handle global multi-currency, multi-entity companies, hopefully around Q1 of next year, how do we do that? And just as a tip, we did it through cap table management, meaning we have 250 venture-backed CFOs who invested in the company, who believed in that vision, and that will be my initial sort of sales distribution channel to prove to the market that this actually matters.
Very, very smart to have the skin in the game from these CFOs. And I would love to hear from Colin, actually, and also Rob. In this transition, especially from founder-led sales or maybe product-led motion to enterprise, is more of the challenge coming from the go-to-market execution side, or is it more from product that having to catch up to a lot of enterprise features? Like, how are you thinking about managing through those challenges?
Yeah, I think to the core of the question, it came from us, or in our experience, really from two areas. One, it's realizing that this needs to be a holistic effort. I think too often going, quote, enterprise or upmarket is talked about as if you're going to have this sales team go out over here, do some stuff, talk to bigger people, and like, good luck. Clearly, that doesn't work well from the customer experience, so failing to take a similar approach to what you took in talking to other customers, and that is having every part of the organization, product engineering, marketing, aligned to that support is not just helpful, but I think necessary. I'd say secondly, what in our case helped us, and might be similar to Stripe, I'll let Rob comment, is like early on, there isn't a big pressure or desire to, quote, just go up market. It's kind of not a prudent goal to say we're just going to go up market. Is there a need there? Do you have a solution there? Is it going to resonate there? And for us, we were like, I would have definitely bet the under joining Ramp over 3 years ago in terms of how quickly we would work with some larger customers. And it really came from customer requests more than anything. But Rob, over to you.
No, I agree. So selling large enterprises is a different animal. And the expectations of what success is supposed to look like need to adjust as you go to gigantic organizations. And the reason I say that is people often ask me, like, where do you draw the line between enterprise and SMBs or mid-markets? Is it, a certain dollar amount? Is it number of employees? Is it number of countries served or whatever? I said, nope. The difference between SMBs and enterprises is SMBs are looking for what you're selling them. Like, they are literally looking for the solution that you want, and they want you to suggest a package of things that will solve a myriad of problems for them. Enterprises want you to fill a specific hole in a specific request. Now, I'll give you an example. Like, a very, very good friend of mine is the CFO of Walmart. So, 2.2 million employees, $580 billion in volume. They're squeaking by. And he said to me, I'll always take a meeting with you. We're friends, our families are friends. He said, but you have to come and tell me what you're going to do for my customers. Because at the size of Walmart, the biggest of the Fortune 1, you're never going to be able to make an impact to Walmart. But what you can do is make an impact to their customers or their customer interaction. And if you can do that, he'll take the meeting. So enterprise is kind of the same thing. At SMBs, you sell to the company. An enterprise, you sell to their customers. And then I'll just kind of part with this, which is one of the benefits of doing business with enterprises when you're talking about trying to do something with a giant organization or a huge platform. In many cases, the margins will be significantly thinner, right? These people have enormous buying power. They have a lot of options. They have their own resources. They can do it in-house, or they can outsource it. They have a series of options. So in order to win that account, typically you have to get pretty thin on margin to do it, but you obviously make it up in volume. But the other side benefit is they bring huge volume, which means that you can negotiate better rates with your suppliers or the resources that you rely on to get your business done, which then makes all your other accounts more profitable. So you have to kind of weigh that as you move up scale, and there's a transition associated with it. But setting the criteria for success in SMB is not going to apply in enterprise, and similar the other way around. So.
I want to just reiterate one of Colin's points, because it was something that took me quite a while to learn, and I know there's a lot of early stage founders here, but the more that you can coordinate product and marketing and engineering and design the way Stripe does in the early days, and the way Ramp does now, it is so noticeable, like in the market, when you have just a beautiful user experience that solves a problem in a delightful way, and it's reinforced everywhere that you see, including your announcement today, which I'm excited to go try out on the travel side. I think that we had, and as you grow, you wear a lot of hats as a founder. You're like the marketing person, the salesperson, the BD person, the product person, a little bit along the way. And as the teams grow, the more that you can coordinate the efforts to do a few things, but really, really, really well, it just makes such a difference. And so, I don't know, that was a lesson learned for me that I just wanted to make sure you guys all reiterate and internalize, because it took me 2 years of just wasted time and splatter to make it start come together.
It's a great point. It's sometimes founders and even VCs think about these are two sides of the houses: product engineering, go to market; product engineering, go to market. But for really bringing a great product into the world, into users' hands, you kind of have to have the two, working hand in hand. And I also love Rob's point in working with enterprise is about convincing them the value of delivering to their customers, not just the shareholders or the stakeholders themselves, how to convince or convey that value versus when you're selling the product to a buyer or user directly. It's a very different storytelling. So I'm taking notes on both of those. I feel like I barely got through half of the questions, so and we're already almost at time. Maybe I'll ask one last question, and we can take a couple really quick questions from the audience. One is, I hear you, Sasha, Puzzle, uses this BD-led motion for sales, and Colin, you led partnerships before at Stripe. I'm very interested in, especially going enterprise, going up market and going after enterprises. What does the partnership and BD role play in sort of the overall go-to-market strategy? Because a lot of founders and people obsessed with this direct sales idea of like you have to have the first touch point and the relationship with customers, but you can leverage a lot of your partners to help you sell and convey that customer value. So how are you thinking about that set of organization?
We play whatever role the engineering team lets us play. So I think really just like any other segment, it really comes down to, can partnerships do something that's going to create some additional value for customers? So we look at it less about code distribution, less about infrastructure. Those are both critical. They're parts of partnership and really love both of those. I think especially for enterprise, it's really what can you do through different partnerships to make that experience that much better for the enterprise customer. It can be integrations, as Sasha alluded to, with accounting and ERP systems. It can be integrations with other products that they will use, but really figuring out from that user perspective what role can partnerships play, I think is especially important with enterprise.
Great. Any other points other panelists want to add? Maybe I'll add one point on there. We actually saw this partnership motion and an ecosystem-led go-to-market pretty directly from a portfolio company called Crossbeam. They have this graph and charts about just what are the companies connected to each other and how they go to market together. And it surprises me how much in especially the data world, like people really buy a bundle of tools, right? They don't just buy the data warehouse. They buy ETL, they buy visualization, and that's sort of the go-to-market motion for a lot of this current generation of cloud data warehouse company going into full steam. And we have seen that with dev tools too. Like people have to go battle with AWS, GCP, who all have bundled products that have so many, whistles and bells, and these startups have to think about how they're partnering with other startups to again deliver this canonical stack of what's the best in class developer tool set. And that's where we see a lot of this ecosystem and partner go-to-market motion being very, very effective, in case that's something useful for the audience here to borrow. So with that, I'll conclude my set of questions. We'll probably have 5 minutes for a couple questions from the audience. If anyone wants to raise their hand, I'll hand you over my mic.
This isn't too loud. Thank you all a lot. My name's Adam. I'm a founder based in New York. I was at another event this morning, and there was an investor on the panel who was talking about ACVs. And he said, I either invest in companies that are like Airtables, like $1,000 a year in ACV, or companies that have like an 8-figure, like a $10 million ACV. And anything in the middle he doesn't touch. Like 50K ACV, he was like, don't touch it. And I was scratching my head a little bit, and then the two co-founders next to me changed their pricing model on the spot, which I was scared of them doing. So I feel like y'all are the real experts, right? You're the revenue guys. What do you think about like what ACVs, how do you think about ACV, the $1,000 ACV versus the 10 million ACV, and like not going after like the 50K ACV market?
I'm happy to kick it off. So I don't know who the investor is, so I will answer it diplomatically. For us, not to be cliche, but it comes back to how much value you're creating for users. And as long as we feel as if it's significant user value, then it's something we're going to pursue. Clearly, we have a great finance group that's working out to the economics work. At the same time, similar to what Rob mentioned earlier, if you heard those rates around net dollar retention, those are extraordinary. And like for us, I think one of the proudest moments was having like investor, it could have been the same one, looking at our financials and saying, is that monthly or like annual net retention? Because you're getting so much out of the base generally if they are getting value and want to keep using it. So if you think of the long-term value, like what is the true long-term value you get from even what that investor might call a medium ACV, I can at least think of a lot of businesses where I'd be pretty excited with a six-figure ACV. And kudos to you for not changing your pricing model on the spot.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, there's advantages to both, and I certainly see why maybe you'd scale on either end. However, I do think you want to be able to have a widest number of customers, not just the biggest and not just the smallest with huge velocity, because you never know where the market's going to go, and the more signals you get from where success is coming from, the better decisions you're going to make. And you know, you can have. It's the same thing with CAC, right? You can invest in a little money to get 1 million customers, or you can invest a lot of money to get a few customers, but you actually have to have the entire spectrum, or you're going to miss signals from the business and signals from changes in the industry. And I think those are really critical. There's a lot of blockbuster videos out there that crushed it and right to the end, right? And so without those signals coming in all the time, you can find yourself making decisions based on the edges of the periphery and not necessarily the meat in the middle.
I think our business leaders are very polite to counter an investor point. I actually, if this is an investor from Andreessen Horowitz, I'm happy to debate him or her offline. And I have read also a lot of articles around like there's a death of valley of like you cannot have these ACVs and your company is going to die. But it's literally as what Rob and Colin said. It has to match your go-to-market motion. It has to match sort of the CAC and what's the cost for bringing in those ACVs. If you can get in like 50K with not a lot of sales touch, perfect, do it, and it grows 30% year over year. Why not, right? But if it's taking a dedicated enterprise sales head, like you only close 20K ACVs, then you need a lot of those. Can you support that sales rep? That's a bit different question. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks. Hey there, Andrew, early stage founder. Excuse me. So I really love the anecdote about the Walmart scenario. So I guess for like an early stage founder, if we're ever so lucky to land a conversation with an executive at Walmart, I guess I'm curious, like, what do you foresee like the engagement with that executive being for like an early stage founder? Like, how do you sort of see that rolling out? And let me know if the question doesn't make sense. I've had a couple of wines, so
No. So I would say that, first of all, folks like that are extremely succinct, and they have a specific objective in mind. Now, that doesn't mean that they are only here to listen to what they want to hear and everything else is obscured. They realize that when they call somebody into their office, whether it's the CFO or CMO or any of those folks at that level, especially with those big organizations, one, they've usually had a huge runway to get there, so they understand perfectly what their role is, but they're always curious. And I will say that even my friend John and others are always more interested in what they don't know than what they do know. So when you get your moment in the sun with somebody like that, you answer their questions specifically of what they asked you for, but always give them a little more perspective on why they might want to think differently about it, whether it's time saving, customer engagement, geographical sensitivities, or maybe product market fit that you see that they don't, because what they're really looking for is, yes, I want you to address this particular issue that I'm looking for, but at the end of the day, I'm a big company. I only get signals, and there's a rule of 5 that I use, which is things happen 5 times before the manager hears it, right? So something either good happens 5 times and then the manager hears it, or something bad happens and the five times and the manager hears it. So when you get to be the CFO of Walmart, it's probably happened like 1,375 times before you heard a good thing or bad thing. So they're actually, while you'd think there'd be this kind of oracle of information where it just all sucks up to their point, actually the opposite is true, and they don't actually get a lot of outside perspective. So bring the information that they're looking for, but also a few pearls of things that might change their perspective on something, and they will ask for the second meeting because they want to follow up on that part.
Okay, so just to reiterate, and let me know if I'm in left field, and then this is the end of my question. So like, I think that's interesting. So what you're saying is like, they're so at the top level that they don't have insights to every single thing. So you can come in there, you can say, hey, this is my sales call, but I can also deliver some value to you in knowledge, build authority, and challenge them on a couple things. Like it's not, I think that's pretty interesting. So you're challenging them, but sort of opening their perspective to different things as well.
Absolutely. Jamie Dimon, who, also reasonably successful, said the thing that it worries him most is what he doesn't hear, right? And so, he's not like NVIDIA where he has 60 direct reports, but at the same time, like, I've met with him twice, and he's always asking you about things that that he doesn't. Tell me something I don't know. That's actually one of his expressions. Tell me something I don't know. Now, sometimes you have to work pretty hard to come up with something he doesn't know, but that's what keeps him up at night, is the agility and the closeness to the customer that you would have, that he will never get being ahead of 280,000 employees.
Maybe one last question.
Hello. Okay, question. So a lot of companies right now, especially in the AI space, need a lot of data in order to provide value. They integrate with data with other companies, especially if they're B2B. So if you are a company and you're trying to show that, initial early value, like you all said, where they can, use your product and in the first 2 minutes see the added value. A lot of times for other companies, you need to do some integrations on that end. So how do you, what's something you think that you can do in the beginning to show that value when it might take a little bit longer to integrate with their data and show that?
You want to answer? So we're probably have been closest to in a similar spot. And I would say, I don't think there's any one specific answer, but 3 things that might help is, one, there's a bunch of founders here. Like, is there other startups that have a higher risk tolerance in what they're doing that can help you build proof points? Because if you come to like a Walmart and you're like, I have this magic AI and I can solve this thing for you, and you're like, all right, like prove to me what data you have. And you're like, I don't have any data yet, but I theoretically, like, it works really well in this thing. There are, for better or for worse, data sets out there. So can you buy a data set somehow, or create your own data set through your own scraping mechanisms to solve it? And then one other thing that I think as a founder, I always am trying to, probably think 2, 3, 4, 5 quarters ahead into this, is like, can you actually, on your path to get there, is there little milestones that help you hit proof points along the way that give you like little wins, like your little dopamine boosts to like micro step to get there along the way? So having a big vision and getting so stuck to the vision, but like what are just like any gaming thing, it's like you gotta, Super Mario Brothers isn't just like get to the end all of a sudden, you gotta get your little mushroom and grow, and you gotta beat this. So like, what are the little milestones that you can get there to help build confidence that you're able to get there? That's how I think about it, maybe.
That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll wrap up from here, because I believe that the panelists probably have plans too, or if you can stay, there will be time for questions. But it's such a great pleasure to host all 3 of you, Rob, Colin, and Sasha. Thank you for your time, and thank you for such an engaging conversation.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.